Calling to order the regular meeting of the Wheeling Plan Commission for Thursday, August 8th, 2019. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Secretary, roll call, please.
All right. Commissioner Blanova.
I'm here.
Commissioner Creech.
Present.
Commissioner Kalis is here. Commissioner Yednick.
Here.
And Chairman Johnson.
Here. Ms. Nyes, any changes to the agenda?
Item 7C, the concept review for phased planned unit development, has been withdrawn by the applicant.
All right, thank you. Citizens' concerns and comments. Mr. Nowak, are you the petitioner or?
I'm sorry, I'm a representative for Target.
Okay, so that's, okay. So then we have no citizens' concerns and comments. Consent items. Docket number SCBA 19-23, Target, 1400 West Lake Cook Road. Appearance approval of a freestanding sign and wall signs. And docket number SCBA 19-25, Hidden Valley, 1197 Willis Avenue. Appearance approval of a freestanding sign. If there are no questions, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Creech, seconded by Commissioner Kalis. Roll call.
Commissioner Creech.
Yes.
Commissioner Kalis votes yes. Commissioner Blanova.
Yes.
Commissioner Yednick.
Yes.
Chairman Johnson.
Yes. All right. Items for review. Docket number 2019-15. Target, once again, 1400 West Lake Cook Road. Appearance approval of facade improvements. Where are my notes? Ms. Nice, anything on this?
Yes, the petitioner is requesting minor appearance approval for facade improvements. All 4 facades of the building will be repainted with gray tones. Right now, they're currently in tan color tones. They're also proposing a red background behind the new white Target signs on the west and south elevations. The red background and the updated color scheme are consistent with Target's new branding, which they're applying nationwide.
Okay, thank you. The petitioner can come up and explain to us what all you're doing.
Yes, so as Ms. Nice has said, Target is going through a national rebranding movement, over 1,000 stores there, and they're looking to keep a consistent appearance for all of their stores. So a lot of stores are transitioning towards this gray facade, and they really like that red ephes with the white sign. All the lettering is now going to be lowercase, which is consistent with the brand. And they feel that red background, that red stucco ephes really makes it pop, which it really does, especially with that gray. If you guys have any questions for me, I'd love to answer, but yeah, that's pretty much what we're here for.
Okay, I think the information in our packet is pretty complete.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go to Commissioner Creech.
I have no questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Commissioner Blanova.
Thank you. I have no questions. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Yednick.
The only thing I just noticed now is that on the last attachment in our packet, the engineering drawing is showing Target Greatland. I'm assuming that might be for a different store. You're not going to be changing.
Oh, I see on that, on the upper sketch.
Yeah. Does that need to be consistent, or do we just assume that the proposed pictures are
The black and white drawing all the way at the top shows Greatland underneath the Target
That's
logo.
existing.
Oh, correct. Yeah, that's existing. It looks like the signs have been remodeled since then even. as you can see, that pharmacy sign
Yeah, we
is also.
never had the Target Great Land in this store. Okay.
Okay, but yes, yeah, it should be consistent with that
Well,
lower.
that drawing is supposed to represent current,
Correct.
and the bottom drawing is represent future. Okay.
Correct.
That's it, thanks.
Thank you.
That's it? Okay. Commissioner Kalish.
Thank you, Chairman. The only thing I was going to ask, painting any surface is a little bit of a sticking point around here, but do you guys have a preventive maintenance program with corporate, a Target or anything, like to just check up and make sure the paint is upheld? I mean, we get some crazy weather here, so is there a corporate preventive maintenance program that might keep an eye on that?
I know they do have a maintenance plan, but I don't know the specifics behind it. I can definitely communicate with Target and send that over to you guys if you would like.
Okay, yeah, it's weather, just, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
It gets crazy, especially with painted material. And then I had a question about the EFS, but in the past, if it's installed, this is the same exact material you're using across all 1,000 stores, the EFS, how you're installing it, everything is
Yeah.
consistent? Okay, that was a question I had for Commissioner Creech, actually, so he confirmed that if it's done right, it's fine. So I'm good with that. No further questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out that currently the entire building is painted now.
Right, yeah. It'll just
It
be
seems very well
repainted.
maintained. I haven't seen any peeling or anything, but yeah, typically, we're not all for painting masonry, but you did the right thing apparently the last time as far as something that is well maintained, so I have no further questions. Anyone, any follow-up? If not, I would love to hear a motion.
So moved. Second.
Commissioner Creech, Commissioner Kalis.
Commissioner Creech?
Yes.
Commissioner Kalis votes yes. Commissioner Blanova?
Yes?
Commissioner Yednick?
Yes.
Chairman Johnson?
Yes. We'll have something for you to sign shortly.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do ours first. And there's two for you to sign. You keep one, and we get the other one.
One's for you.
All right, thank you. Okay, calling docket number 2019-9A and B, which was continued from July 25th, 2019. Catherine Court Industrial Condominium Association, 145 to 189 Wheeling Road. Docket number 2019-9 is a text amendment to establish commercial vehicle parking, and PC 19-3, a minor site plan approval for commercial vehicle parking. We no longer have 2019B.
Correct, we changed the plan.
Right, okay.
And have the secretary open the public hearing then.
Oh, that's right, this is a public hearing.
Yes.
Sure
I
is.
forgot.
Catherine Court Industrial Condominium Association property owner seeking a text amendment to Title 19 zoning of the Wheeling Municipal Code to establish commercial vehicle parking for the property located at 145 to 189 Wheeling Road. Petition 2000-9B has been withdrawn. And where did the text amendment go? I had it. There we go. A text amendment is an amendment to the map and/or text of the zoning ordinance which affects the whole village. In order to be considered for a text amendment, the petitioner is required to demonstrate through testimony to the Plan Commission at a public hearing that their request meets the standards of the village code, including, but not limited to, how the proposed text amendment is compatible with Title 19 and the comprehensive plan. Prior to the public hearing, the petitioner provides written statements meant to show that their requests meet the standards for a text amendment as established in Title 19. The commission chairperson will typically direct that these statements be entered into the record without a full reading of them at the hearing. Based upon the testimony and supporting material submitted, the Plan Commission will make findings in support of or against the petitioner's testimony and report those findings to the village board.
Thank you. Ms. Nyes, anything on this before we get started?
I'm gonna hand that over to.
I'll
Okay, Mr. Robles.
Thank you. This petition was originally scheduled at the July 25th meeting, but was continued to today just to allow for staff and the petitioner to work together to refine the petition. And it has been refined to a text amendment and a minor site plan approval, which is being requested tonight. The initial catalyst for all this was a result of a code enforcement violation that was issued to one of the unit owners of this building as a result of their operation having contractor or commercial related vehicles that were parked in the exterior outside. And the current off-street parking regulations of the zoning code do not expressly permit these vehicles that are associated with commercial operations to be parked on site. In fact, the general provisions within the zoning code state that, rather vaguely, that parking is to be solely used for vehicles of patrons, occupants, or employees of such uses, which can be applied in many different ways. But as you go further into the zoning code, as it relates to specific uses that are allowed within zoning districts, there are references to contractor uses. And so the code has two types of contractors' uses: contractors' yards and contractor shops. Well, with the contractor yard, that's the more intense type of use, which specifically references the outdoor storage of materials and equipment and vehicles. The contractor shop, based on the way it's defined, implies that parking needs to be within the units or within the building itself. So as a result of these kind of conflicts, staff has traditionally not permitted commercial vehicles to be parked outside when they've been associated with contractor uses. So this can create a conflict when you have a zoning code that would allow, in this case, a contractor shop, but doesn't allow their associated vehicles. And so it kind of creates that conflict where having a use is okay, but then their vehicles are not. So this is something that staff has identified within the zoning code as something to be addressed. And as the timing would have it, this issue arose with Catherine Cord and the one of the business owners. So we have worked with Rena Schiffman and the association to come up with the text amendment to clarify and provide a little bit more again, clarity on the general provisions for the parking. So within the staff report, there is the proposed text amendment that basically plans to split the off-street parking use or the utilization of parking into two sections. The first section, which would be subsection A, basically continues the language as it is right now. Again, that in kind of summary, that parking needs to be solely for patrons, occupants, employees in parking facilities. The additional section, subsection B, would clarify parking for commercial vehicles, which would be permitted, that is necessary for the operation of the licensed business. And that's permitted in non-residential zoning districts and must be located on the parking facility that serves the use. So the reason why we've kind of created this, or we've added that in, is one, to clarify kind of three parts. Clarify that parking of commercial vehicles can now be permitted if they are necessary for the operation of the licensed business. Secondly, they're not permitted in non-residential or they're permitted in residential districts, non-residential districts, which means that
contractor may live within a residential area, but they aren't allowed to park that vehicle within their residential area. It can only be in non-residential zoning districts. And that the vehicles must be located on the parking facility that serves that use. So this would prevent a business owner or a property owner from renting out spaces to somebody else to allow for the parking of an off-site business. So it has to be located on the property. The text amendment goes on to say that commercial vehicles with exposed equipment. So there are commercial vehicles out there that have racks or lifts or equipment, other kind of things that are visible, as well as trailers. Those types of equipment we've deemed as a little bit more visually offensive, if you will, and should be located in specific areas on the property. So we have identified that those commercial vehicles with exposed equipment need to be located either on the sides of the building or in the rear of the building, away from the from the view of the street or from zoning districts or from residential zoning districts. And those types of parking areas that are going to be used for trailers or commercial vehicles with exposed equipment then need to come forward to the Plan Commission for a minor site plan approval to identify where those vehicles will be located, to make sure that they are properly located on the site and properly screened, subject to the Plan Commission's approval. Which leads to the second part of this request, which is the minor site plan approval for the association, which has identified 3 areas on the site that would be used for commercial vehicle parking. Now again, these 3 areas would be areas that are for vehicles with exposed equipment, and so 2 of the 3 areas are areas that we've have historically experienced where these vehicles are parked. So this would just kind of formalize these locations, make them allowed. And again, these uses we've noticed that these areas have been traditionally used for parking, and then the association is proposing to take a row of parking along the east property line and modify that to create a contractor vehicle zone, if you will. So rather than having just standard parking spaces, they're creating a zone within that area just through restriping, repainting the area to then locate any additional unit owners' equipment in that area or vehicles in that area, which would meet the criteria of the proposed text amendment. It's located within the rear of the property. It's visually screened from the adjacent roadways, and it's not within a residential area that would be impacted by locating these vehicles in this area. One other thing that I forgot to note is that within the proposed text amendment, we've also added a statement that any equipment or materials, anything of that nature that's associated with a commercial business cannot be stored in a parking lot. So just to reinforce that parking spaces cannot be used to store extra wood or metal or whatever kind of equipment. That all has to be stored indoors. So we've taken that into account as well. So that's a summary of the proposed request in front of you tonight, and if you have any additional questions, I'm available.
Thank you for that detailed information. This is a public hearing, so I need to swear you in. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the information you're giving us tonight is the truth?
Certainly.
State your name and business address for the record.
I am Rena Schiffman. My business address is, I'm the attorney for Catherine Court.
Okay.
So Catherine Court is 145 to 189 or 187 Wheeling Road, South Wheeling Road.
All right. State your case.
So,
Can you bend the microphone down so it's...
sure, I guess I'm too short, sorry.
I think Mr. Robles probably covered most of it.
So I think Steve did a great job of covering it. This all arose because a unit owner was cited, and this area is zoned MXI for multi-use industrial, and Catherine Court is, in fact, in its title, an industrial condominium complex. So everyone who owns a unit there has some kind of business or industry there. When it became MXI in 2005, I think it was, there weren't the kind of cars that there are now. Maybe it was 2006. And now there are larger trucks, cars have gotten you know, cell phones got smaller, cars got bigger usually. And you can see the kind of trailers and, well, you probably have it on your screen, right? Same picture.
Yes.
So there's trailers for businesses and there's oversized box trucks. And they have historically been stored in this U area, and then along the side, which is where the signs of distinction one is. But we were initially not looking at using these because one of the village's goal was to maintain the aesthetics of Wheeling and not have it be unattractive with these vehicles being visible, which is why we selected that row of spaces along the, it's covered by a fence on the side where it would be visible. And there are currently 112 parking spots, and there's more than enough spots remaining when we capture those spaces as well. So I want to make sure I address that first. And I think that there was a field trip by Mr. Robles recently, and he can confirm that there's still ample parking. This is kind of a unicorn. There's only three MXI places in Wheeling. So it was kind of a trial and error to get to where we are today. But our goal is to be able to maintain the businesses. I think he said it best to me when he said, you know, we're letting you have a business, but we're punishing you for having the car that required or the truck that requires you to do the business. And like you chuckled, I chuckled when he said it too, because it's part of the business and this was anticipated to be partially industrial. So I think this is really an ideal situation where we isolate certain areas, limit it for parking, and in areas that are pre-approved by the village and the Plan Commission where it would be obscured. So it wouldn't be visible and an eyesore, and you'd maintain the aesthetic beauty of Wheeling.
Okay. Again, this is a public hearing. If there's anyone in the audience that wanted to speak on this matter? Nope. Okay. Let's go to Commissioner Blanova.
Thank you. After this detailed explanation, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Commissioner
Pretty
Kalis?
straightforward.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think where you've chosen makes a lot of sense. So I appreciate the attention to detail of making it as aesthetically pleasing as possible, given all the big trucks. Appreciate that. Question for staff, Steve, is the wording itself. Anytime we amend a text, when we have a text amendment, I'm thinking in the future anyone who might be in this, you said it was a unicorn and it probably is, this might never ever come up again with another MXI, but I'm just thinking in the future, does it matter that it says shall be parked in the side area or rear area because that's what pertains to you, but in the future, what if it's in the front area? Or is the wording on that should it be more specific? Also generally screened, is that potentially going to cause an issue? And petitioner says, well, I think it's generally screened and it's clearly not. Do we want to be more specific about the wording of what screening means and opening it up to the possibility that it might be in the front area in the future with another MXI?
So the front perspective is, we kind of took it from the kind of zoning aspect of a property has a front, side, and rear. And the front traditionally is the area or the yard along the street. So from the traditional zoning reference of a lot and the yards that are established, again, front, side, and rear, that front is you know, traditionally along the street, and therefore we didn't want to add that in there because we didn't want those vehicles that have exposed equipment or have the trailers to be within the front.
Okay.
Because they are then visible from the street from every passerby that goes past the property.
Okay.
So the side and rear areas are traditionally, generally for most typical properties, off to the side of the building and the back of the building where they're generally harder to see because you have landscaping and the building itself are just general everyday cars parked there that then provide the screen. In reference to the generally screened, the intent was that is because this would have to come in front of the Plan Commission.
Okay.
And so it gives Plan Commission the ability to determine whether or not the existing landscaping if there is landscaping with parking lot islands, if there's fencing, if there's a section of the building that they're locating it behind, like in this case, there's an interior courtyard in the back. So to say that it must be screened by landscaping wouldn't help this situation here because there is no landscaping, but it is visually screened. So we kept it as such to allow the petitioner and any future petitioner, as well as the Plan Commission, the ability to work with the site and the unique conditions of each site to then determine through staff and the petitioner to determine if it is screened sufficiently to the expectations of the Plan Commission.
Okay, great. I figured that's what you would say. I just wanted to confirm, because when we ask petitioners to come with certain things and they don't know what the expectation is of what we want to see, they come with minimal things and it's like, well, we would have liked you to have seen this, but every situation can be different, so I totally get that. And I appreciate that it says, and subject to review, subject to the review procedures in section 19. So it's up for discussion. This plan makes sense to me in the future. If it doesn't, then we'll be able to have a discussion about it, so I appreciate that.
So I can tell you three things. One is I forgot to add that part of the requirement that I worked out with Steve was that the vehicles have to be licensed by the state of Illinois because they have to be that way to travel on this
Sure.
road. So I want to make sure that part's covered. I
Okay.
forgot to say that earlier, and I apologize. I came with a box if you want to see anything else. I brought my whole file.
I'm sure it's riveting, but thank you.
And I know it was heavy.
It was heavy. She let me in the door, she held the door for me. And the other thing I wanted to say is that one of the, I told you there's 3 associations like this, and one of them is literally adjacent to this unit. It's above where what would be the top of where it says Catherine Court is next door, literally next door. So the third one I think is on Wolf Road. So I don't know about that one, but I know that the other one is, I know how that one appears, and we'd be able to work with them as well if they ever had this kind of issue.
Okay.
I actually thought that the building next door was part of it.
No, the building next door is a separate condo association, also industrial though, called South Wheeling.
Okay.
Okay, great. Yeah, this plan makes sense to me. I'm just, with text amendments, I'm always looking in the future of what might come before us. You never know, so I can appreciate that. It's up for us to discuss. I also appreciate the adding of no equipment in the we don't want to assume anything, so specifically saying you can't store equipment is.
To the best of my knowledge, nothing is stored outside anyways, it's only the
And I'm
vehicles.
not accusing that, saying you guys are, I'm just, again, just to reiterate that, because people do in the village. So other than that, thank you for the explanation. Thank you for the explanation. No other questions.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Yednick.
Yeah, I have a couple things. I have no objection to the concept or the purpose. Like you said, it makes sense. You have commercial businesses, you got to park commercial vehicles. I was more questioning a couple of things. I'm president of a residential condo association, so I'm curious who's going to be responsible for enforcement. So if you get the in the back, if you end up with the employee cars parking in the back or somebody's parking in the front, is now the burden going to be on the village to enforce
The burden is on management to enforce it. The association has, part of the requirement for us was that it had to be managed by a management company. And the management company is going to enforce it. There's going to be placards given for, color-coded placards for parking spaces.
Okay. Then this question I think is maybe for Attorney Maluzzi. I looked in the zoning code and the definition of a commercial vehicle is pretty vague. And so when you read this paragraph, this almost is a better definition of commercial vehicles. So I'm wondering, does the definition section in section 19 need to be amended to more clearly define a commercial vehicle?
Well, we're not defining commercial vehicles with the exposed equipment. We're more calling out a specific type of commercial vehicle with exposed equipment. There are more like an entirely enclosed box truck or large van doesn't need to be parked in the screened area. It's the ones that are more unsightly because they have exposed equipment, racks, material, like, an open bed or a trailer, those are the ones. So I wouldn't necessarily, we can consider amending it in the future, but the ones that are called out here are a subset of commercial vehicles.
Okay, because it's real broad. The
Yes.
definition, the section can be read anyway. And then the petitioner, last thing, the petitioner just brought up something that I hadn't even thought of. You said that part of what you'd worked out is that all of these vehicles have to be licensed.
Of course.
So then should that language be in this amendment to say, because now I could see a situation where if you have a trailer or a box truck or anything, then if it has a license, that puts a real clear dividing line of what's acceptable and what's not, so that you're not going to have other vehicles?
The property maintenance code of the village requires that any vehicle that is parked be, in working order and licensed and registered. So that element is already covered within a other section of the code that it involves our property maintenance and the inspectors who would be responsible for, one, making sure that vehicles are parked where they're supposed to be and that they're not abandoned or not functioning.
All right, so we're not going to have a trailer on blocks that's going to be sitting there for months and months and months?
Correct.
It's not permitted under this.
That's not allowed currently within our property maintenance code. So those elements are already addressed and already provided for.
All right, I wasn't aware of that. That's all I had, thanks.
Commissioner Creech.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All my questions have already been answered.
All right. The only one I had was that little 3 spaces in the front where the sign company
Yes,
does have a vehicle with a lift and all that.
yes.
Are we granting special dispensation as far as that, or what?
Again, that was one of the areas that we found through, historical street photos, through Google, that those have consistently been used. And through the village's enforcement, the village never issued any violations to those vehicles being there. So between the historical factor as well as the fact that the village hadn't in the past, up until this point, cited that those vehicles being parked there, it was one of those things where it was, kind of by that nature deemed acceptable. So by including these, this is formally permitting them to kind of align with the historical and the fact that the village has never deemed this area to be a problem.
Okay, so we're just identifying those 3 spaces out front. It's not going to cause trouble with other tenants saying, well, they can do it, so I can park mine out there.
Well, that was, originally our proposal was originally just that strip where we're capturing the spaces. And I think when the most recent field trip occurred, Mr. Robles preferred the trailers be where they are now, which is on the inside of the U. And I know that Signs of Distinction, his name is Mark, he's here. I know that he had contacted me, and I know that he had contacted Steve. I was concerned about the visibility from Wheeling Road because my promise in my application was that I would not disturb the aesthetic beauty, and I know that it drives right on Wheeling Road. And Steve explained to me exactly what he explained to you now. I just want to know, I didn't expand those 3 areas. That was Steve's choice. I was committed to the one strip that I had applied for.
And the reason why staff felt we should include those is through the photos, one of the site photos you see within the courtyard area, there's a number of trailers and trucks
That one.
there. And those actually make sense to be within there. They're larger, they're completely hidden away from view. So to not include this area would have meant they would have had to have moved to that eastern parking row, which would, in staff's opinion, make them far more visible than where they are now, where they're completely within the interior of the building. So that's why we felt that adding these areas on would actually make more sense and not create an unintended consequence through this process.
And so, Mr. Yadnick, I just want to make sure I tell you, this is how they look all year round. They're not on blocks. This is how they look all year round.
Right. Well, I guess you bring up a good point, though, then, if you're, the nature of the existing tenants fits, but now we're opening this up so that if a new tenant comes in, so now we have those 3 spots on the end, if they have a really long trailer like this, we're saying that it's acceptable to put that, or these long trailers that are in the courtyard section could now be in the back. I'm just wondering.
Well,
but again, is that the condo association's rule, or worry to enforce that, so they say nothing can extend beyond the parking space, kind of a.
Signs of Distinction doesn't have any trailers, right? You've got the one lift that I saw parked out there, and it's a decent-looking truck, so.
So to answer Commissioner Yetnick's question, yes, the parking space these parking spaces are now being allocated to have these trailers and larger vehicles parked there, but they cannot extend out beyond those spaces where staff would view them as a problem for access or for emergency access,
Okay.
things of that nature. So where that comes in is that if there is a tenant, or if there's a new tenant or an existing owner, rather, not tenant, but existing owner or a new owner, that has a vehicle that cannot fit within one of these designated stalls, there is that new zone, as I called it, where it's, as long as it's within that area, it can be parked, perpendicular to the fence, or it can be parked parallel to the fence, but that area has been designated as this commercial, the more commercial vehicles with exposed equipment, and so they have that area to park within. So if it's a little bit longer, they can navigate it within there and make sure it's totally within the lines and be okay, because it would fit there rather than in a standard parking stall space.
Okay.
And I just want to say one more thing, is that at the lower half, there was originally a handicap space, and we left the handicap space and access next door to it untouched so that there would still be access for handicapped parkers, handicapped people to park. There was only the one handicap space at the time, and we left it right then and there. I just want to make sure we did not disturb that special needs requirement.
Okay, that's all I had. Anyone, any follow-up? No, then do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do we have any?
Are there conditions?
Conditions
No,
on 2019-9?
no.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Kaylas?
Keep it consistent. Commissioner Creech.
Yes.
Commissioner Kalis votes yes. Commissioner Blanova.
Yes?
Commissioner Yednick.
Yes.
Chairman Johnson.
Yes. And on PC 19-3, the minor site plan approval for commercial vehicle parking.
So moved.
Second.
Yednick, Commissioner Creech?
Commissioner Yednick.
Yes.
Commissioner Creech.
Yes.
Commissioner Blanova.
Yes?
Commissioner Kalis votes yes. And Chairman Johnson.
Yes. We will have something for you to sign,
Thank you.
couple sheets. I now need a motion to close the public hearing on 2019-9.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Kaylas, Commissioner Creech?
You can do all in favor.
Oh,
Yeah.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Come on, come on.
All four of them.
Yeah. If you could sign both of them. Yeah. You can just put
Oh, these are the
these are
consent.
And then if you could sign both of these two.
Here's the consent one.
Thank you.
Okay. As previously announced, item 7C has been withdrawn by the petitioner. So we will move on to item 7D, docket number 2019-18, which we're going to ask to be continued to August 22nd.
Yes, that's correct. The consultant for the village is finalizing the final version of the station area plan update, finalizing some additional sections as well as some additional graphics and illustrations. So they had asked that they be afforded a little bit more time and be continued from tonight to the 22nd, and they will be ready at that time for the final draft of the station area plan update.
Final?
Yes, final.
Maybe.
All right.
So we need a motion.
So we need a motion to continue to August 22nd.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Kalis, Commissioner Creech. Wait, go ahead.
Commissioner Kalis votes yes. Commissioner Creech?
Yes.
Commissioner Blanova?
Yes.
Commissioner Yednick?
Yes.
Chairman Johnson?
Yes. All right, approval of minutes for July 25th, 2019. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Kalis, Commissioner Creech.
Commissioner Kalis votes yes. Commissioner Creech?
Yes.
Commissioner Blanova?
Yes.
Commissioner Yednick?
Yes.
Chairman Johnson?
Yes. Other business. Ms. Nyes, anything on your,
No.
Mr. Robles? Mallory?
Nope.
Commissioner Creech?
I have nothing, Chairman.
Commissioner Yednick?
We're setting records on timing. No, nothing else.
Not gonna surprise you.
Commissioner Kalis?
Nothing here.
Well, I hope we get our new commissioners soon because we need more people to make motions. Got kind of in a rut tonight. And I hear they did have 3 interviews prior to the regular board meeting on Monday. So hopefully at the next board meeting, they'll make some appointments and we'll have some new members.
Hopefully more ladies. Way too many men.
I know at least one, I think they actually had 2 applicants.
There was an article in the Journal
Yeah,
that had named names. Yeah. Pointed fingers.
Which is how I found out what the names were. All right, if there's nothing else,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Oh, I got it.
actually,
Then I'll second.
Beat you to the punch this
You
time.
can have third.
I'll third.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We are adjourned.